Joining us here on the show is WWE legend, icon, and Hall of Famer, and author of a new book, Saint Mick, My Journey from Hardcore Legend to Santa's Jolly Elf. Mick Foley joining us here on the show. Mick, good morning. How are you?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me on today.
My pleasure, man. Thanks so much for joining us. When you are early in your career and playing a tough guy in the ring, do you ever imagine yourself softening to where you could be called Saint Mick down the road?
No, absolutely never. And that was one of the fun things about taking on this iconic character is like instead of having to be tougher and meaner and braver and stronger and more aggressive, like I got to do things that were exact opposite, kinder, gentler, more patient, and I really enjoyed being this guy every December.
Okay, so this sounds like a psychiatrist question, but do you feel like you're a better person now?
I do, yeah. There's something almost magical about that red suit, especially you have respect for the traditions and some of the guys who've dedicated large parts of their life to bringing joy to children. Yeah, there's something about it. You put that red suit on and you feel like, absolutely. As this experience has made me a better person.
So the experience is dressing up as Santa and playing that role, playing a heartwarming kind of Christmas role for kids and touching them.
Well,
and
I'm going to resist the urge to now get aggressive when I hear words like playing and dressing up.
Okay. That's interesting. So how would you then describe what you did?
Startling metamorphosis.
Okay.
There's a part in the book where I was doing double duty. I was doing Santa for Toys for Tots, and then I was myself at a convention, and so I would do Santa for an hour, for the Toys for Tots photos, and I would go put the dark hair mousse into my beard and be myself the rest of the time. And the guy had said, "Should we advertise you as Santa?" And I said, no, I'll get the word out. People who know will know. If they don't need to know, they don't need to know. And all of a sudden I hear an announcement going over the entire convention. Ladies and gentlemen, WWE Hall of Famer Mick Foley will be dressing up as Santa. And it's like, I dread those words. Dread them. Because I with all respect to, like somebody's uncle who buys a suit at Party City and puts a beard on, the portrayal means a little bit more to me than that. Like I take it a little more seriously. So I do, it feels like, tonight will be my first Santa visit of the season, and I'll be nervous, but as soon as I have that first great interaction, it'll all come springing back to me.
Mick Foley joining us here on the show. Well, I think it's interesting because that metamorphosis, that has to happen in wrestling. You have to be into a character. You have to be of the person. You can't just be playing a character necessarily. So how much does your career in wrestling train you for a opportunity like this?
Yeah, it's actually something I'm really thankful that Stephanie McMahon touched on. She did a beautiful introduction forward, well above and beyond like what I expected. And I expected to be good because Stephanie's a tremendous writer, but she really put herself into it. And she talked about a conversation we had that I wanted to write about, but was afraid I would sound crazy. And in the conversation, I said, Stephanie, I feel in some ways that all the experiences I had, in portraying these different characters, in, having so much time on the microphone, even in spending so much time in hospital rooms, whether it was visiting children who were battling some type of challenges or injured service members, I said, it feels like it's put me in a unique position to make the biggest possible difference. So that when I see a child in a hospital room, the goal is to take this sterile environment and turn it into something magical for a few minutes. And when it succeeds, not every visit is an overwhelming success. There's different levels of success, and some are flat out failures. Where you just go in and you just don't feel like you're making that difference. But when you do, it's powerful. It's powerful, and it's really emotional to think that this character that is so widely recognized can have, touch people in a profound way.
All wrestlers at your level are great athletes. They have to be. There has to be an athleticism involved. But the ones that are really transcendental are great actors as well. Were you a great actor as a child? Were you a natural kind of character growing up?
Yeah, I was somebody that liked to get reactions. The same things that made me the weird kid in school, made me.
I can relate to that.
Help me succeed. This is before the days of reality shows and all that stuff. So if you were the guy that ate weird stuff, like you could establish a little bit of a reputation for yourself. But it was about getting reactions, and so much of what I did in the wrestling ring involved, physically traumatic events. And then when I found that I could get reactions from writing, and in this case, from portraying this iconic character of Santa Claus, it's the same. There's this moment where I'm leaving a Christmas Eve visit in 2015. I get a text message from the father who was like, "We'll never forget this moment. Oh, thank you so much for creating this for me and my children." And I said to my son, who is my elf, I said, "I feel like I just had a huge pay-per-view match." And he said, "But Dad, there were only 3 people there." And I'm like, "Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's that idea that you're doing something that's making a difference and creating a memory for somebody."
Now, speaking of the character that you've portrayed so many interesting ones inside the ring. Which was the most difficult? Which was the hardest?
Well, Dude Love was just me joking around. Like, that wasn't something I got in real depth into. Mankind was difficult because, the character was very dark. I had to make it different than Cactus Jack. I didn't realize that the entire reason for creating the Mankind character, I came up with the name and most of the nuances, but Mr. McMahon specifically wanted me in that mask. And I didn't know until 3 years ago that the only reason he wanted me in that mask, because the caveat to hiring me was to cover up my face. He didn't think I looked like a star. I'm glad I didn't know that at the time. I may not have accepted that role. But to try to take that character, someplace dark, it was difficult for me, and I really threw myself into it and did the best I could with it. And in the long run, it turned out to be the best thing that could have happened. And by the time '98 rolled around, the character had done about a 180-degree turn, and it was a very lighthearted character. So children who grew up remembering, Mankind with The Rock and the sock puppet might be, horrified to find out, the origins of that character and to see that he actually did, for a time, scare women and children.
WWE Hall of Famer, legendary wrestling icon Mick Foley has a new book out, Saint Mick, My Journey from Hardcore Legend to Santa's Jolly Elf. Check it out. Mick, this was a lot of fun, man. Good luck with the book. Thanks so much for dropping on by.
Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Mick Foley joining us here on the DA Show. Love it. Very cool.